Hello, RJ here. Today I want to share with you some of my maintenance experience so far with my 2023 Honda Pilot Elite. At this point I have 26,311 miles on the vehicle and wanted to share with you what the Honda Service Pass, the free maintenance for 2 years or 24,000 miles, what that has been for me, my experience, and then to share a few other maintenance components about the vehicle. So first off, the Honda Service Pass. In 2023, this was offered on Hondas, and it's still in existence, but you might want to double check the particular vehicle that you may be purchasing if you are purchasing new, as some of these programs do change. But when I bought the vehicle, it had a 2-year or 24,000 mile free maintenance. Now the key here is, what does maintenance mean? And in this case, Honda is clear, and they say what's covered is engine oil and filter changes, tire rotations, and a multi-point inspection. I did have those services completed on the vehicle, and I'll show you here in just a second. But basically, in the 2 years or 24,000 miles, as I noted earlier, I now have 26,000 miles on the vehicle. I was only able to take my car in for an oil change twice and a free tire rotation. So in this particular vehicle, if you run the regular maintenance minder oil change intervals, you're probably going to be running between 8,000, 9,000, 9,500 miles between oil changes. Now for me, I made the choice to do a mid kind of interval oil change at around the 4,000 to 5,000 mark before taking advantage of the free oil changes. I did that. I've been doing that through the life of this vehicle up to this point. So that has been my particular experience. So let me comment here a little bit more on the Honda Service Pass and some of the maintenance I've had done through that, and then some of the maintenance that I've had to pay for or do myself. You see here on this table the oil changes, and there were 2 oil changes done within that eligible time period by Honda. You see there at 9,000 miles, and then one just over 17,000 miles. Those were when the maintenance minder was down at, I think, 20% on that first one and 15% on the second one. The self-maintenance components were oil changes that I did myself. I made a decision to do interim oil changes. I wanted to see how long the first 2 or 3 oil change intervals would be, just to get a gauge, and then I did an oil change in between. I didn't want to go 8,000 to 9,000 miles on a full interchange, just a personal choice. And you see there the mileage in between the prior oil change, roughly in the 4,000 mile range, one just slightly below. Going forward, I will likely do oil changes in the 5,000 mile range. Inch this up just a little bit and go with that schedule. You see the cost there. For myself, doing an oil change, the direct cost was right around $40. That was roughly, give or take a few bucks, but about $32 for the oil, $8 for the filter and crush washer. And you see the total there of my out-of-pocket expenses at $160. You also see here the rear differential fluid change. I had that done at a local Honda dealership. That is not included in the service pass provided by Honda. That cost me $116. I had that done at 15,000 miles, which is the break-in interval first change, and then it'll be changed at 30,000 miles thereafter intervals. I did have a 4-wheel alignment and tire rotation done for $145 at my local Firestone dealership or service center. And this is an area that I'll comment on just a little bit more around some of the tire wear that I have experienced so far. But this, you see here the total cost, $421 for myself. And obviously you can deduct the components, if you were just only to do the dealer intervals, but you're likely only going to get 2 oil changes, free oil changes out of this. That third one's probably going to come to you at around that 26,000 mile range, which will be outside the window for a free one. If you watched my earlier video, you remember I had some comments about the tires and road noise. And that road noise has gotten a little bit worse. And after taking it into a local Firestone dealership, they were able to help me kind of work through this. These are Bridgestone tires that are serviced by Firestone. So they're very knowledgeable about the tires and how they wear. One of the interesting things that the technicians had mentioned is that it's not uncommon for OEM manufacturers to specify a slightly different tread compound on the tire that goes on the vehicle as new versus the replacement tires that you might get that are branded exactly the same. And in this particular case, the suggestion, or at least the comment, was that these tires might be a little bit actually softer on tread compound, or they're wearing just maybe a little bit funny. I think part of that wear could be the fact that it wasn't getting tire rotations for about 8,000 to 9,000 miles, which is probably a little bit too long. As a result, I have some cupping that has occurred on the tires. I'm now into a little bit more of an aggressive tire rotation, and I'm going to be a little more frequent on it, and hopefully I can mitigate that a little bit. But I have had some tire hum and higher tire drum, so to speak, and it has continued to be probably the one piece about the vehicle that a little disappointed in terms of that road noise coming from the tire itself. However, I did discover one interesting feature in the engine bay that might actually contribute a little bit to the tire noise. Now we're in the engine bay. I just want to make one observation, and I don't know if this has any bearing on road noise coming from the tires, but I do just simply find this interesting. In a lot of cars, you'll have a fender or an inside liner where the metal kind of covers the entire portion of the wheel well. In this particular case, you've got metal covering about half of the wheel well area. You see this, and it goes back behind. But then on the full front side of the wheel well is just that plastic. It's just that plastic cover underneath. Now, I'm sure Honda did this for some weight savings, and there's probably other cars that use weight savings this way. It's just extra metal that might not be needed, but I don't know. I just wonder if that has any additional bearing on noise that comes up from the wheel well from the tire area. Be curious what you all think, and if any of you have noticed that or experienced that as well. Some of you might be curious for an update on the gas mileage. This vehicle is rated at 19 city and 25 highway and 21 combined. Right now I am getting 21.1 miles per gallon here over 9,000 miles on trip B. So right at the mark, just barely just a tick above. The other thing you might notice if you've watched my previous video, I just filled up with gas, and the range here showing 388. That's one of the higher sides of ratings that I have seen. We got back from a trip here recently, and so I think the trip computer might be reading some higher algorithms. So anyhow, but yeah, it's typically the range, typically between that 365 and 375, 380 at the most there. So just a little update there. So just to summarize, if you are someone who is buying a new Honda Pilot, and at the time of your purchase, Honda is offering a Honda Service Pass free maintenance, 2 years, 24,000 mile program, I think you can expect to have just 2 free oil changes and 2 free tire rotations. Particularly if the vehicle is going between 8,000 and 9,000 miles on an oil change, I think you'll just miss that third free opportunity. Now, it's possible if you were buying a different Honda with a different engine, it may be a little bit different, and you may get that third free oil change and free tire rotation. But for the Pilot owners, I think you're probably looking at 2 for both there. One other word of note: I would recommend rotating your tires a little bit sooner than the 8,000 to 9,000 mile period. I think in my case, by going that long, I developed a little bit of uneven tire wear, and I am religious about keeping my tire pressures right at 35, the recommendation, and keeping on top of that. So despite all that, the tire started to wear a little bit unevenly, and it's quite likely that was due to the long rotation intervals. So maybe just a thought there, you might try to rotate them just a little bit quicker, maybe around 5,000 to 6,000 miles. All right, that's it for this video. Thank you for joining me, and all the best.